one of the things I think that's really important in our industry is that you've got to have the coaching component is you've also got to have some of those raw understandings of their situation, having been in those trenches, right?
Yep.
And I think if you can do that as well, the challenge though is that someone who does that really effectively goes, well, I'm earning 400 or 500 grand a year. Why do I do this role, right?
Hey, welcome to the show, Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is Coach James Short, aka Shorty. And this is a show for those within the real estate industry wanting to lead and grow their real estate business. It's a series of interviews that we conduct for those within the industry. So we're finding out what those leaders are within the industry, what makes them tick, what's their story, what are their strategies, and how to become the leaders and the growers within the industry. But also it's an interview series with those outside of the industry. I'm always a big believer of looking at a whole different part of the pie rather than just focusing on one part of the pie. Because what it does, it allows you to have a different perspective, allows you to get snippets or golden nuggets from those outside of the industry that can look into the industry and go, there's a different perspective. And so I encourage you to reach out to the guests. I encourage you to lean into these series to find out how can these pieces of information, experiences, stories help you lead and grow your real estate business. Welcome back to another edition, and I am very excited for our next guest, Jonathan Marlow from Exceed Real Estate in Herdsmen, WA. Jonathan and his partners started their agency from his living room 9 years ago, employing just one person and managing 90 properties and doing 36 sales a year. Now, fast forward to today, and they provide employment for 100 people, managing 4,600 properties and 400 sales per year. Oh my goodness, what about the growth? They attribute the growth to date and what will come directly to the team and how they show up. This is an honor and a privilege to hear from Jonathan, his story, and how he has grown so incredibly over these last years. Jonathan, really appreciate you joining us on the show today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, James.
So, mate, what sparked that? I love these stories from the around the living room, and this idea came, and how that all come about.
Well, it was probably more that it was the wreckage of a divorce, and the business was one of the remaining assets, and I, during that divorce battle, had moved it to home, and it had probably begun the decline. Like I'd moved it to home 2 years previous to try and get custody of my boys.
Yep.
And the decline of the business was such that just kept getting its reverse momentum. And my business partner, who had a small shareholding, he was an ex-employee's husband. He had a small shareholding in the business. He's also a long-term client. He had to come in and buy out the rent roll for us as part of the marital assets division. And we then agreed on a partnership going forward. And so, for a period there, it was me, him, and our, I employed a licensee at the time because I didn't hold an full agent's license. My ex-wife used to hold that, and so we came out of a bit of a tricky situation, I think. And look, if it wasn't for that new partner coming in, I don't think we'd be telling this story today. And from there, there was a number of acquisitions that happened along the way. Chiefly that's been Ray's area, albeit that I've been building a small part of that along the journey as well, and really just assisting on that journey. And then he's the sort of the chief at Raising Finance. He's the director of financial wizardry. And we just kept building, and we probably didn't really have an end destination. This is, I think, sometimes the thing that really probably throws us a bit, and certainly throws us when we have to explain it to people. Like they said, well, what was your goal? Well, we actually didn't have a goal.
Yep.
We've just got a continuous growth mindset. And even today, like, we're not done. We're far from done. So it's about, what do we need? What does growth look like in the next period? What do we need that to look like? And how do we need to be? Who do we need to be to achieve that? And then start, being those people and start doing those things.
That's so true. That's beautiful, because it is, as the good man Simon Sinek says, you're playing the infinite game rather than the finite game, where what is that, long vision. And if you have that mindset, that growth mindset, well, okay, cool. Then we'll look at this opportunity and that opportunity and what fits to those values and those principles, which is fantastic. And going back to those early days, obviously there would have been a lot of long hours, lots of work, lots of new learning. If you look back on I guess that first year of transition, what was your biggest learning or takeaway from that year around the living room table?
Look, I think, to be honest, I don't know that the biggest learning came then. I think they came probably about 2 or 3 years later, for me in particular, because I was probably still in the middle of all of the battles of the family court system, the, not DCP, the Child Support Agency, and so on. And there was just so many fronts that I was fighting there that I was just really holding my head above water. But my responses to things and my ability to handle things was probably declining, and my ability to be able to find the best version of me to show up was probably not there. It's probably best, I think, to be pretty raw and honest on this. So I hope you don't mind me sharing that to that degree.
Sure.
And then there was a bit of a, I suppose, an event that happened that caused me to go, hang on a minute, you need to get your shit together. And, from that moment, which was a poor emotional regulation moment, we started to, or I started to turn a corner. I think Ray was already on a journey, and probably I think I would have been left behind if I didn't find that better version of myself, and rightfully so. There wasn't that conversation that happened, but you just know in yourself, right? I think it would have been a situation where we would have, drifted apart. So for me, it was about 3 years in, but then, really the learnings have been exponential. So, with each acquisition, there's been new learnings. With each event that's happened, with changing of, the major platform we operated under was a major set of learnings. And how we've had to grow the sales team and some of the stuff that we've had to do there was some major learnings. So I think, and today, like, I'm, in the midst of doing an MBA, because there's major learning. Yeah, there's more to learn, right? Yeah. There's stuff I just don't know. And, I think our favorite saying is, how did we get this far without knowing this? Like we will get to a point, we'll learn something, we'll go, oh, shit, that could have been useful a couple of years ago, we better put that in place,
Yeah. That point, that event, and I really appreciate you being open and vulnerable. I highly respect that, and thank you for that. Take me that point where you had that event a couple of years in, and you knew you had to make that shift and step into that person that you needed to be. What did you do after that in relations to the work on yourself to ensure that stepped into action?
I think just, like, really a lot of introspection, a lot of, working on, avoiding those, responses, and slowing down the journey, slowing down situations, really kind of just stepping away from a moment, in not physically speaking, but emotionally and psychologically, and just really getting and finding that space within myself. And look, and I think that's still work always, but I've got to say, one of the things that I observed in my partner was that, he was always calm. Like, I've seen him lose his cool twice in 9 years, right? And again, when I say lose his cool, it will be he raises his voice.
Yeah.
Right. But that's as far as that goes, right? That's a losing cool for him. And I think, like being around a person like that, some of that has to rub off on you, right? So I had a great example to follow, and that's I think a big part of it. So for me, just stepping away from those moments. And, I think we tend to in real estate, especially when we're out selling, and putting deals together every day, it's a highly emotionally charged job, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that means that you are always running on a high cortisol level, right? And you're always kind of ready to jump on stuff, and you have to be to a degree because it's a survival business, right? And I think finding that space made me a far better leader. Because I stopped being the salesperson. I stopped running from one deal to the next, trying to find a way to put something together and one conversation to the next, looking for, is there something in this conversation? If there's nothing, okay, cut that off, move on to the next one, you know what I mean? And, you turn off that prospecting mentality and turn on the leadership mentality, and it's a different mentality.
And what are those? I love this because one, I love the creating space, particularly when it comes to mentally and emotionally responses. I think that's gold. That shift, because this is a really important point I want to sort of get across to the audience. That shift from salesperson to business owner, leader, what was that biggest lessons for you and those biggest shift that you had to do in relations to your own behaviors and your own attitude? Hey guys, just a little side note here. How's it going? Are you on track this year? I know that sometimes this part of the year we can feel like we're in a bit of a grind, a bit of in the trenches. Are you on track from the original plans that you set out for the rest of this year? What I've realized is that with this time of year, we get so distracted and we've got trying to chase so many shiny balls and go down so many rabbit holes. And that's why I created a program called the 90. It's a framework that actually allows you to achieve more in 90 days than ever before. Some of the feedback that we've got from some of the people that have used the process, the 90, is that they've achieved more in 90 days than the whole previous year. So if you'd like to have the tools, have the techniques, have the framework on the 90, so you and your team can achieve more in 90 days than ever before. What it does, it impacts you of how to get clear, what you need to do, and who you need to be to show up in order to achieve the things you want to achieve over the next 90 days. Simply head over to jamesshort.com.au, click on join the waitlist, fill in your details, and one of the team members will be in touch and take you through the 90 framework. On with the show.
Well, I think the first thing is, and I knew this from probably a good 10 to even 12 years prior to that moment, where I felt that for us to grow the business, it needed to stop being reliant on me selling. And, at that time I had, big mortgages, expensive cars in the driveway, had to keep paying for that stuff, And so, the idea of stopping selling was, not something that I was as committed to as I should have been.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my wife at the time, this is what we need to do. We need to sell off these. We need to do this. And she went no, and she didn't have to fight too hard for me to go, okay, yeah, we'll keep it all, But the reality was that's what had to happen. So when the divorce all happened, that had taken care of all that stuff, right? And so, all of a sudden there was nothing that I needed to service, no debts, no, none of that. And so the first realization within that was, okay, I'm in this position that I wanted to be in 12, 14 years ago. Let's now make something of it. So I stepped away from earning commissions on sales, put them back into the business. And I started drawing a minimum wage. And just lived on that for about 3 years, which, I think a lot of people, and I think this is what stops a lot of people from becoming the person they need to be as a leader in a real estate business, right, is that stepping away from that financial benefit. right? Because, you can make such great money. So, I lived on that for 3 years and just, again, luckily I had been given the gift of losing everything to find that space in me, and worked on being away from the tools. So that was the first step, was to get off the tools. So, in fact, I think it actually took about 4 years, and there was a transition period. So about 2 years into that journey, we said, okay, let's step you away from the tools entirely, right? And that was a conversation that myself and my business partner had. Let's start working on building a team. We picked up an acquisition in the northern suburbs at the time, and they had a team of 6 reps that weren't part of the acquisition. We bought the rent roll. But that team of reps, the owner of the business said, look, I'm happy. I'm still not done. I want to keep doing some selling for another couple of years. I'm happy to come along to you guys. Do you want to take me on? Right. And then, because he was such a charismatic leader and had built such a great business previously, I mean, he used to have 40 reps. He had 6 or 7 remaining. We got the benefit of those people joining us as well. And so then at that point we said, okay, look, I need to be off the tools entirely. We're going to, carry some losses for a period, but let's build this team up. And I started just working on coaching the team. And it was, just one-on-one coaching. And still to this day, it's one-on-one coaching. Right. So, I sit down with them every week. Now it's not as, like the higher performers, I don't need to sit with every week, but it's, we sit down with them and it's, where are you at? What are you working on? Where are your challenges? What do I need to do to help you, get those done? And, finding that space consistently was what started that rapid growth. And from there, we kind of learned, okay, wow, I'm not only can I do this, but I'm actually not bad at it, right? So, the guys, their performances started going through the roof. They loved it. So they were really fully invested. I got to say, though, do I think we had the right people at that time? No. Like, we had some of the right people, right? There were some that were 900-pound gorillas there, right? And, and that was, those people needed to take their leave of us over the next few years. But what it did was also enabled us to say, okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing new people in. And in WA, the landscape is that for a long time they've resisted paying salaries and so on to salespeople, the industry. And, obviously the legislation forced that hand to a degree, but there's still a lot of people out there that are trying to avoid that in various different hybrids, right?
Yep.
We went, okay, you know what, we're going to employ a bunch of people, and we employed 6 on retainer at once, and went, let's get these guys going. And that was probably a very, very big turning point, because we succeeded with 5 of those. One of them didn't make it, but that then sort of all of a sudden swelled our team. A couple of people came and joined us from other agencies, but we've never been poachers where, so they kind of came to us. We define ourselves as coaches, not poachers. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of people did join us, but that's not been a focus. And from there, we've just kept growing and developing people. And, today, the base of the business, the 900-pound gorillas aren't with us anymore. But the base of the business now is people that we've developed and grown.
With your values, with your ethos, with your guiding principles, which is absolutely phenomenal. So for you now, where's your focus within the business now? 9 years down the track, what's your main focus for your team and for the development of the business?
So we kind of learned some things along the way about bringing those new people in, and we've built up a bit of a mentoring system, but we've started to see some pain points emerge in that one. We've seen some pain points emerge in new people that, again, we didn't have the visibility of before. And I think we kind of just, those people maybe didn't let us know about it, but we've identified some pain points. So we're now looking at restructuring that entry role. So we don't see now the entry role as them coming in as a rep. We're seeing now the entry role is they're coming in as an intern and a prospector, right? And that's their sole job, right? They spend all day long prospecting. Once they get an opportunity, then the mentor comes in and shows them how that journey looks. So they're not getting paid that on a retainer anymore. They're getting paid that as a salary. So they don't have this debt building up, because we found that was a pain point, the retainer debt. And, the mentors, we found that they didn't, they stopped wanting to get involved because it was taking away from them earning money on full deals, right? So, this is kind of the newer version. So one, we're rolling out that structure right now to see what that looks like. And we're going to learn a lot about ourselves over the next 12 months, I think, in that regard. And then from there, it's once we've got that system, where we want it, because one of the things I suppose as well we've learned along the way is how to get these people up and running pretty quick, and we're getting them up and running quicker each time. So we see this as an evolution of that. Once we've got that all nutted down, then the next step is looking at how do I duplicate me.
Great.
So we're in the process of identifying people, I suppose, right? We've got a couple of people that we can see could do that job, but the challenge, of course, is that at the moment, to duplicate me, we couldn't afford that person, right?
Sure.
And that person probably wouldn't want to do it for what I'm prepared to do it for. Right.
Yeah.
So we're still sort of in that space. So we're also, I suppose, getting that revenue position and profit position to a point where, okay, that person now will have, enough of a carrot to draw them away from selling, because you need them to have all of those skills. One of the things I think, again, that's really important in our industry is that you've got to have the coaching component is you've got to have a coaching skill, but you've also got to have some of those raw understandings of their situation, having been in those trenches, right?
Yep.
And I think if you can do that as well, the challenge though is that someone who does that really effectively goes, well, I'm earning $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Why do I do this role, right?
Sure.
So you got to find the sweet spot of getting them into this role, and what the lifestyle benefits are and so on. So
lots of moving pieces, right? Lots of moving pieces.
Yeah, there is. And that's the challenge. But that's the fun. That's the work. Right? That's the work. Yeah.
That's growth for you as a leader, and it's growth
100%.
for the business as a whole, which is exciting. That's what you love. That's why you're doing your MBA, for example. Like they're the things that continually grow cycle, and what you hit the nail on the head when it comes to people want to grow, and then the business grows, and then you have that aspect of continually helping them. It's absolutely phenomenal. And so this is awesome. So finding that person obviously is one of the key parts, and having that outline and having that pathway for those newbies coming into the business, which is fantastic. And so is that the plan? Is that the main focus for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, look, it's an ongoing focus, I feel like. But yeah, look, it's a getting readiness for that, because then the next move after that is to duplicate this business in another part of Australia.
Right.
So, and again, we're probably, it's not a hard and fast thing, because, we've still got work to do here, but we know that the next time around will, instead of, because I think, just to give you an idea, it's been 27 acquisitions or 28 acquisitions to get us to this point on the rental side of the business. And that's a big, important piece of the puzzle, right? Having that part really solid, right? But we know now what that needs to look like. So it'll be a couple of key acquisitions next time all at once, right? And just start from the ground running, and then put all of our systems, put our leaders in place. So, it's duplicating then leaders across the entirety of the business. So, we've got quite a few leaders that we're developing in the company now. So those people then, we'll develop, either they'll want to come, or the people they develop will want to come, and we'll start this whole journey again. But like I said, probably we see it as being a different piece next time. It's more of a change management piece, right?
Yeah.
Is what we see it being next time.
Yeah, fantastic. Jonathan, on the show, we have our 60-second quiz to find out a bit more about our guests. Are you willing to play?
Sure.
Here we go.
Scary, but okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite food?
Pasta.
Love it. Favorite movie?
Probably the Crazy Stupid Love.
Oh, beautiful. Favorite holiday destination?
Bali.
Beautiful. Do you have
About Bongan Island in particular.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you have a morning routine?
Yep. Every morning, get up, walk the dog, then go for a swim before going to work, then into the office.
Beautiful. Evening routine?
Study at the moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you have a biggest regret?
That I didn't do all of this sooner. Didn't start on this journey a lot sooner. But having said that, I think life's too short for regrets.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm enjoying it, and I wouldn't get to enjoy it if I had have done it sooner. So
very true, very true. Do you have a most embarrassing moment?
Look, I heaps. Where do I start? Look, I think probably one that's just I can't get it out of my head, and I'm trying to find something else to not have to share it. But I was at a Christmas do early in my career, and it was a work real estate Christmas do, and I was not the successful agent that I was to become, and I was pretending I was calling an auction. I was a bit drunk and so on. One of the guys pulled my pants down whilst I was doing it. So that was probably one of the most embarrassing moments.
Oh, very funny. If you could choose 5 inspirational people to have dinner with, they could be dead or alive, who would they be?
Simon Sinek.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Branson. Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Or Barack Obama. Roger Federer.
Mm-hmm.
And Andre Agassi.
Fantastic. If you were Prime Minister for the day, what's one thing that you would change?
I think I'd make, the senior government, appointments or the role of governance to be a meritocracy. So in other words, you've got to, if you're going to hold that portfolio, you've got to be employed in that portfolio, and government could just oversee the people that are running those portfolios.
Great. Yeah, great. And what's your best piece of advice?
Park the ego.
Ooh.
If I think we as an industry live and die on our ego too much, and park the ego, because the thing is, the ego does, and I've seen this happen time and again. You see these, rises and in businesses, and they also implode just as quickly as they rose, right?
Yeah.
And that's quite often they are driven by high ego people, right? And park the ego, because that's not long lasting, right? It can definitely get you to rise, and you see it happen all the time, but they also implode just as quickly because they burn people along the way.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Great response. And how can the audience get in contact with you and follow your journey?
I suppose they could find me on LinkedIn. Maybe that's to be honest, I've never been asked that before. I actually probably try to sit a lot
Sit
more in the
back.
background today. Well, a lot more in the background today. I'm not,
Yeah.
try to, but yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Jonathan, really appreciate your time, your energy and expertise. We could be chatting for hours. There's so many different aspects that we could cover, but from today, I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for being on the show.
No, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. I enjoyed it.